Hey guys, and welcome back into now for something a little bit different, episode 54. I hope everybody is doing great and they had a wonderful holiday. Today, guys, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a comic book that I really like called Black Hammer. Before I get into that, though, I figured I'd just talk to everybody and give everybody just a quick update about what's going on in the world of and now for something a little bit different. So on Wednesday, I'm going to be discussing with Jose and Justin about our newest Spotlight series, 8 Million Ways to Die with Jeff Bridges. Um, and I look forward to that, guys, and hopefully you do too as well. It should be a lively discussion. And I'm also hoping by the end of the week to have out another solo episode where I'll be covering the French 2024 adaptation of The Count of Monte Cristo. So fingers crossed. If everything pans out the way I hope it does, you guys will have 3 episodes. So hopefully that's some stuff to look forward to. Originally, I was going to go ahead and cover the Frank Capra Christmas film, A Pocket Full of Miracles. That didn't come to fruition, guys, unfortunately. Main reason being is I just got sick, guys. I got sick. My arthritis kicked in, and Frank Capra is probably one of those guys that whose work I just absolutely adore. And he has a really interesting history and background, and such a huge filmography of films that I really love. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to properly do it justice the way I wanted to. So I've just hit the pause button on that for right now. Now I'm going to go back to Frank Capra. What I'm going to do later on in the year is I'm going to have like a whole month where I talk nothing but Frank Capra films, as kind of like a tribute to him and his body of work. So hopefully that's something to look forward to. But I just wanted to let you guys know that's the main reason why I didn't do it this week. But I figured what's good is it's been a while since I've had an opportunity to discuss with you guys a comic book. And I really love comic books. Um, I probably fell in love with comic books before I fell in love with film, or maybe around the same time. And this comic book's a really cool one. It's kind of hard, even though I know this is part of the what I'm supposed to be doing here, but it's kind of hard to describe this comic book. I guess the best way to describe it is it's kind of a hero book, um, but there's a little bit more to it than that. There's this almost hero comic book slash Twilight Zone vibe going on. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Um, this is Omnibus Volume 1, and it collects the first 13 issues. Now, what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to tease you with the first issue, which doesn't leave on ends on a cliffhanger, but hopefully there'll be enough tease for you guys to go out and get this yourself and get addicted like I did. Because each issue just gets better and better. And I do think it's something, if you like something off the beaten track, you're going to like it. If you like mainstream hero books, you're going to like it. So I think those things are what makes this book very special. Um, but before I get into the actual story and break down the beat by beats of the story, and I'm not going to do a total breakdown, I'm going to give you a detailed synopsis. But before I do that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the writer and the artist. Our writer is a guy named Jeff Lemire. Now, Jeff, just bear with me, is a Canadian comic book writer and artist. He's done some creator owned projects like Essex County, um, Sweet Tooth, and The Nobody. And those are just a handful of some of his creator owned projects. But then he's worked on mainstream stuff for like Marvel, doing stuff like Hawkeye, X-Men, Moon Knight, Old Man Logan, and various other titles, guys. He's worked for DC doing stuff like Superboy, Green Arrow, Justice League Dark, Animal Man. Um, he's one of these guys that's managed to navigate both worlds, and I think that's the smart way to do it. I love the creator-owned projects just because I feel like people are a little bit more passionate about them. Just a personal way that I look at things. I think when it's a creator-owned project and you own the product, you just have more invested. I could be wrong. Um, so I never actually read the stuff he's done for Marvel or DC. It's probably well written, well drawn stuff because, like I said, this guy really puts his heart into the final product and what you're actually reading. Um, and I've actually started to read a bunch of his other titles as well. This actually won an Eisner Award in 2017 for Best New Series. For those that aren't familiar with the Eisner Award in the world of comic books, the only way to describe it really is it's, I guess, the equivalent to like winning like a Golden Globe in acting or an Academy Award. The whole title will the Eisner Awards is based off of the writer artist Will Eisner, who some will acknowledge him as like the godfather of the graphic novel. So that's why it's called the Eisner Awards. It's based off writer artist Will Eisner. I also talked about some of Will Eisner's stuff on here. Well, specifically, I talked about um, A Contract with God. If you go back, you can check out my episode on that. Um, so, yeah, that's a little bit about a writer. When we get into our artist, we have a gentleman named Dean Armstrong. Now, Dean, I apologize. I might have gotten that last name wrong. Hopefully, I didn't. He's from the UK, and he got his start in 1990 working for Judge Dredd magazine. On top of that, he's also worked on a bunch of other stuff, including a lot of the DC Vertigo titles, such as The Sandman, Lucifer, Books of Magic, and then, doing stuff for Dark Horse like Predator. Um, so he's one of these guys that's kind of been all over the place. Again, he's worked for a lot of the bigger titles. He's also worked on some of the smaller titles. Him and our man Jeff Lemire, our writer, they have a really good sense of chemistry as far as the writing complementing the artwork. Jeff Lemire is one of these guys that he's so popular as far as he's so in demand, I guess, that normally while he would do his own drawing as well as his writing, he knew that he wasn't going to be able to make that kind of commitment. So he got our man Dean Armstrong to come on as the artist. And I'll tell you what, his artwork is really unique. Before I get into like the list of characters and break into the story, I'll just show you a little bit about the artwork and kind of let you guys kind of come up with your own ideas. But it's kind of hard because I'm just going to try to show you a couple pages. But like this is issue number 1. This is the cover. And these are cast of characters. Hopefully you can see that. And I'll show you. Well, let's see if I have some of the in the back, some other stuff like uh, that's one of the characters. And there's all sorts of really cool shots in here, like this character and a bunch of other stuff. Dean has a really unique sense of art style. And like I said, it really complements the writing of our guy, Jeff Lemire. Just bear with me here a second, guys. Because of course I was messing around here and I lost my place in my tablet. So yeah, losing sight of my goal here. Losing track here, guys. Yeah, no, the artwork really complements the writing, and I think it enhances it, of course, like it should. Um, I'm going to get into the basic premise of the story. The basic premise of the story is we have these heroes, and they're in a city called Spiral City. Basically, uh, they're presented with this supervillain, if you will, called the Anti-God. And the Anti-God, imagine, if you will, if you're into comic books, guys, a combination of like Dark Side from DC or Galactus from Marvel, these super god-like villains. Well, our cast of characters have this big face-off, and basically what ends up happening is they manage to defeat this character, but then they wake up and they're in this small town of Rockwood, which is almost like a really Twilight Zone-esque town. So it makes for an interesting story. You know, we have the main character, or one of our main characters, who's never really gone into too much detail because he was like, I guess, their mightiest hero in Spiral City, and his name is the Black Hammer, based our title of the series, Black Hammer. And that's Joe Weber. And Joe Weber is an African American, and basically, he was a guy that fought for everything that was wrong in the world. And then one day, he got this hammer. And I guess the best way to kind of describe the hammer is kind of like almost like Thor's hammer. Not exactly, but it's got like that kind of vibe as far as the powers he gets. He gets endued with super strength because of the hammer, and it's like literally like this giant monster hammer, and that's how he fights villains. Now, basically, in the main story here, he manages to put the final blow on this anti-god character. Uh, Unfortunately, in the process of doing that, he dies. Now, his hammer is sent to this town of Rockwood along with the other heroes, but unfortunately, he's no longer with them. He sacrificed his life in order to defeat this godlike character, the anti-god. And like I said, he would be considered, I guess, in Marvel, he'd be like the Captain America, the one hero that everyone looks up to, or in DC, everyone looks to Superman as though that one character, that one shining character, full of hope that all the other heroes look up to. He represents that type of character. So we don't get into. I've only read the first graphic novel. We have a lot of flashbacks later on throughout the series, but in the first issue, which is what I'm talking about today, you don't really get into too much details about Joe Weber, the Black Hammer. After Joe Weber, the rest of these superheroes that fight this anti-god character in Spiral City, we have Abraham, whose name is Slam. Now, Slam would be like almost like a lot of these characters are based off of, or like model a little bit off like the DC or Marvel Silver Age heroes guys. Slam is like this giant muscle bound hero. He gives off a very Captain America vibe, but he doesn't have any superpowers. But he's just one of those guys that fights for what's right. And, he's the muscle bound hero. He's an older guy. Um, Next, we have Golden Gale. Excuse me, I apologize, guys. My voice is really shot here. We have Golden Gale. And what's interesting about this character is she's kind of like a Shazam character, right? She's a young girl who meets this old man who imbues these mystical powers on her. But what makes this interesting, guys, in a weird little twist, she's a 9-year-old girl trapped in that body. So she's actually 50 years old, but she just doesn't age. Um, and because of that, she deals with the frustrations of a 50-year-old person stuck in a 9-year-old's body. And she's very sarcastic and very frustrated by the situation they're in. She's a really interesting character, like the rest of them are. Next, we have Barbalier. Now, Barbalier is a shape-shifting alien. The best way to describe him, it'd be like almost like DC's Martian Manhunter, which is like a character that was stranded on Earth, um, and forced to fit into our society. The only thing that saves him is the fact that he can shapeshift. He's a cop, or he was a cop. Um, he's gay. Unfortunately, he deals with a lot of being persecuted just for that. Um, and like the rest of these guys, he fought this anti-god in Spiral City, but then what ended up happening is they all woke up after this huge fight, and they woke up into this town of this small Twilight Zone town of Rockwood. So that's Barbalier. Bear with me. Next, we have a character named Colonel Weird. And Colonel Weird is a really fun character, guys. He's basically like a mad scientist slash uh anti-hero, I guess. He kind of gives off a mad scientist slash Doctor Strange type character. Um, he can like like in DC they have the Phantom Zone and they have all these other different dimensions and stuff. He has the ability to kind of travel um, to those different worlds. But despite his power, again, he's also stuck in this Rockwood town. Um, with this character, we also have his sidekick, which is a sentient robot named Talkie Walkie. And he's basically his sidekick, and he's working on vigilantly trying to get everybody out of Rockwood. He's coming up with this probe that tests the limits of this town because basically in this town of Rockwood that they're stuck in, there's like this force field, and if anybody tries to go past a certain point, the the force field can basically kill everybody. Um, but this walkie-talkie, this robot, he's actively working on this device, this probe that can see if he can find a way to break through the force field. Next, we have a character named Madame Dragonfly. Madame Dragonfly is a very mysterious character. She is actually interesting because she's not really a superhero. It's almost like Madame Dragonfly is if you guys ever read Tales from the Crypt or House of Horror, you have those hosts, that always the stories always wraps around to it in the beginning and the end of the story. She's like that. We don't know the full extent of her powers, especially in the first issue, and she almost gives off like a very like almost like a witch vibe. So yeah, that's a little bit about the actual characters. So the first issue kind of starts off, and we see Abraham, otherwise known as Slam, the muscle bound character that I was talking about, and he's on a farm and he's feeding these pigs, and he runs into Gail, otherwise known as Golden Gal, and she's kind of copping an attitude with him, and she's smoking cigarettes. She's like, you shouldn't be smoking cigarettes. She's like, don't tell me what to do, and there's some friction there. You are introduced to him, and you're introduced to the rest of the characters, and you see that they're on this farm, and they're talking about how it's 10 years since they've been stranded on this small town of Rockwood in this farm. And they talk about how later on in the evening they're going to have this special event um, to commemorate the death of our main character, the Black Hammer, Joe Weber. Um, but everybody's kind of like dealing with um, the after effects of living in this small town for 10 years, being stuck by this force field that they can't get out of in this small town of Rockwood. Um, so we get further into the story. Slam Abraham has to go into town to get supplies. So Gail, Golden Gal, and Barberlin, my Martian Manhunter type alien character, join him. He goes into town. He goes into a small diner, and we're introduced to his girlfriend. I want to say her name is Sue. He has breakfast there. She's happy to see him. She asks him, "Hey, like, why can't I come over to your house later on, maybe for dinner one night?" And he's like, "You don't understand. My family's very complicated, and there's a reason why I keep you away from them." Of course, she's a little kind of upset by that because they've kind of been dating. You find out that they've been dating for a while, and she's kind of like in shock that she still hasn't been able to meet his family. So they have this little brief conversation. Next thing you know, into the restaurant walks the sheriff. And with the sheriff is Golden Gale. And of course, like I said, she's trapped in the body of a 9-year-old. And our sheriff is this typical small town, ignorant, asshole sheriff. Basically, he goes up to Abraham and he's like, I found your niece and she was shoplifting from the corner store. She took a pack of cigarettes and a candy bar. It's like, you need to do something about her. And of course, Abraham apologizes. He says, I'm so sorry for my niece's behavior. I'll take care of this right away. And the sheriff's kind of a dick. He's like, next time I could have her hauled off to jail, put her in juvie. And Abraham's like I said, I'm really, really sorry. It won't happen again. This is where his girlfriend kind of interjects and she says, hey, listen, this isn't about Abraham or Gail. This is about the fact that we're divorced now and I'm dating Abraham. And he's like, woman, I don't care who you're dating. It has nothing to do with that. There's something wrong with these people in that farm. And I don't care about that, but they're nothing but trouble. You know, there's something strange going on that farm. And I just don't know what it is yet. So he's kind of like basically, like I said, he's your small town, ignorant sheriff. He doesn't like the family that lives on the farm, these misfit group of heroes. And he certainly doesn't like our main man Abraham here because he's dating his ex-wife. Um, so basically, they get through that scene. Abraham goes back to the farm. We're introduced to everybody else in the cast. We're introduced to Colonel Weird. We're introduced to, um, bear with me, guys, all our other characters. We're introduced to Golden Gal again, Barbalier, Colonel Weird, Madam Dragonfly. Colonel Weird basically he uh, comes into the barn where we meet his sidekick Talkie Walkie, and like I described earlier about this probe that Talkie Walkie is making, they have a conversation about that. Um, and like I said, then we're introduced to Madam Dragonfly, who's basically like this witch-like character, and you kind of get a little bit of a feel for these characters, a little bit of an introduction. They talk a little bit more about what I discussed earlier, which is this cataclysmic event by this anti-god character that basically wanted to take over the earth. Um, and Black Hammer, their hero, made the ultimate sacrifice by killing him. Uh, but somehow, in the process of killing him, the after effect was that they were all transported to this town of Rockwood, where they're basically stuck in this town. But once a year, they have this ceremony where they gather together on the death of Black Hammer and they try to celebrate his life. So later on in the evening, they do that, but nobody's really into it. You can see Abraham is the only one that really has his heart in being there, and he comments that so much to that effect that, like everyone else, all they've been doing is just complaining about the fact that they've been stuck in this small town of Rockwood for over 10 years. And it's kind of like, at a certain point, we just kind of got to get over it and just kind of try to learn to live our lives as normal people and try not to stick out too much and do our best to just kind of fit in. The farm that they're in is on the outskirts of town a little bit, so they don't have as many interactions with people. Um, and they did that kind of specifically for that reason, because obviously they know that they kind of stick out like a sore thumb. Um, but he points out it's like most of you guys are just complaining, the whole time we're here. We just got to make the best of a bad situation and try to, start over again. But things aren't easy. Like I said, like someone like Barbalier, he's an alien. On top of being an alien, he's gay, and he's in a small town, so there's a lot of things that are kind of challenging. So basically, the first issue kind of ends with this evening where they're kind of it all takes place the first issue during one day, and it ends with this tribute to the Black Hammer, the guy that made the ultimate sacrifice. But meanwhile, in Spiral City, we see a young African American woman, probably in her late 20s, as a journalist, and she's writing a story, basically remembering the day that these heroes made this ultimate sacrifice and how they disappeared off, as far as she's concerned, and the people of Spiral City are concerned, off the face of the earth. Um, they don't know, the people of Spiral City, including her, don't know that these heroes are still alive. Um, and for her father, we find out, is the Black Hammer, Joe Weber. So she's determined to try to figure out the mystery and what happened to Spiral City's heroes. And that's where we leave the first issue. So, guys, that's kind of a very detailed synopsis, but I don't want to give too much away because I do want to leave a little bit of a mystery for you guys. Um, and again, I apologize. My voice is still kind of shot from the stupid cold. I'm trying to do my best. I'm not trying to do, like I told you guys, for those that listened to the last episode, I'm trying to make it a habit of not doing a beat by beat, page by page breakdown of whether it's a film or whether it's a comic book. But on the same token, I can make words, I promise. On the same token, I also don't want to do just the synopsis. I want to do somewhere in the middle there. So hopefully, I've succeeded in that, and hopefully, I've given you guys something to look forward to. You can find this anywhere, your local comic book shop. You can find this at Barnes and Nobles, or Amazon. Like I said, I have the first three graphic novels. This is the first 13 issues of this omnibus here, and it's really, really good, guys. Really strong writing, really beautiful artwork. I can't say enough positive things about it. Um, I think what makes it unique, like I said, is you do have that weird Twilight Zone vibe going on in this story, but you do also, on top of that, have that superhero vibe too. So it gives you kind of the best of both worlds. For me, I don't dislike the superhero world, but as I've gotten older, I really want something to be a little bit different, hence the name of my show, and now for something a little bit different. And not to just leave it at that. When I say something a little bit different, like I'm attracted to stories that aren't, the problem I have with most superhero stories is the melodrama, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is, at a certain point, it does kind of feel a little bit, gets a little bit old, you know? And I feel like for me, that's where I feel like a lot of superhero stories don't quite succeed because it's like at a certain point, they just run out of ideas. On how to keep it fresh, how to keep the audience engaged. So for me, I've always been more attracted, especially probably since my late teens, early 20s, I've been more attracted to these creator owned projects where I feel like they're trying their best to just do something different. Um, and hopefully they know when to start the project, but then they know when to end the project. I mean, I love Spider-Man. I love Ghost Rider. I like a lot of Batman. There's a million project superhero comic books that I like, but they just don't end. And I think that's where, because they don't end, there's always another story. I feel like it's so hard to keep it fresh. Um, so like for me, like I'll still pick up a superhero book every once in a while. But like for like DC, for example, there's some still stuff being written out there that's good. But like I love like Elseworlds. I don't know if you guys aren't familiar with the Elseworld projects or the Elseworld books. It's basically the premise is, oh, let's take Superman, but what happens if Superman was born in medieval time? Or what happens if Batman was given a Green Lantern ring? You know, like they have all these oddball titles. They're self-contained and it's something different. And I think that's where I think a lot of the hero books, and it's not anybody's fault, they have a hard time keeping the series fresh because eventually they just run out of ideas. And then they start recycling ideas and I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of great projects out there, and there's a lot of stuff that I haven't read because as I get older, I don't have as much money to spend, and there's just so much stuff being put out there. So there's probably a lot of good hero books out there that I just haven't got my hands on. Um, that's all said, guys. Like I said, um, I think this is a book you guys should seek out. I think it's really worth your time. I hope you do. Now, if you guys disagree with anything I said, especially my rant on heroes, because I have to have, it's John here, so I have to have some sort of rant about heroes or something. It wouldn't be appropriate if I didn't. Or if you would disagree about something I said, or agree with something I've said, or if you've read Black Hammer and you like it or don't like it, or there's another book you guys think I should be reading as far as comic books, let me know, guys. I'm always open to new stuff, and I'm always open to hearing what you guys have to say. You can reach me on Facebook through Messenger. You can also reach me at my email address, which is, and now for something a little bit different, the number one, at gmail.com. And that's all together. And now for something different, one at gmail.com. And let me know what you think. Like I said, Wednesday, I'll have a new Spotlight episode. And hopefully by the end of next weekend, I'll have another episode covering the Count of Monte Cristo. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I hope you guys have yourself a great holiday week. Get lots of rest. You take it easy, and thanks for listening. I'll talk to everybody soon.